Is Star Wars dead? When I was growing up, I remember that whenever a new Star Wars movie was announced, it was always a big event. It was one of the few still running blockbuster franchises at the time. Hell, Star Wars, Jaws, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind were the rise of the blockbuster, which is why it breaks my heart to see the state of Star Wars is in today, ever since Disney purchased Lucasfilm back in 2012. Now, it feels like there has been a continual rapid decrease in the franchise's quality and popularity. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is to finally address Star Wars' return to the big screen after 7 years with The Mandalorian and Grogu, and to discuss both sides of the conversation surrounding the upcoming theatrical release Star Wars movie. Since the acquisition of Disney buying Lucasfilm and all their subsidiaries such as LucasArts, the popularity and excitement from fans and general audiences all plummeted hard. Back in 2015, after the first theatrical release Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, excitement for Star Wars was on the rise. There were some criticisms for the movie, such as it's too similar to A New Hope, but the general consensus was it's a good starting point, leaving fans cautiously excited for wherever Disney and Lucasfilm wanted to do next. Then, the release of Rogue One. It began to truly seem like Star Wars was officially back. Fans were excited for the future of Star Wars and at the idea of getting a new mainline movie every 2 years with an original spin-off film between each mainline movie. And the incredible release of the final season of the Clone Wars. So what happened? Then Disney Lucas released The Last Jedi, the single most divisive Star Wars movie to date, followed shortly by the animated show Star Wars Resistance. Now, while Resistance wasn't as panned by critics and fans as The Last Jedi, it was an obvious sign that Disney Lucasfilm was on the decline and didn't have a roadmap on what to do with their newly owned and established IP. After The Last Jedi, they decided to abandon Colin Trevorrow's final installment in their sequel trilogy that would have been called Duel of the Fates, in order to play it safe after the very polarized reaction to The Last Jedi, deciding it'd be better to bring back J.J. Abrams to direct the final installment in the end of the trilogy of trilogies, deciding to play it safe with a director that made their most successful Star Wars movie yet, which in the end became their second biggest mistake, which resulted in the sequel trilogy of the Skywalker saga feeling like a complete mess with no vision, where each movie after The Force Awakens undoes the events of the previous film. Now, none of this is to say that Disney and Lucasfilm didn't have some successful projects, such as Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Andor, Rogue One, The Mandalorian, Skeleton Crew, the final season of The Clone Wars, Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, and I'd even argue for The Bad Batch, and on some level even Ahsoka. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that Disney and Lucasfilm has had absolutely no successes whatsoever, because they have. The problem is the leadership at Disney and Lucasfilm are far more interested into turning Star Wars into something it's just not. People like Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, Dave Filoni, and others are far more interested in shoehorning their political views into Star Wars than they are telling compelling stories about interesting characters. You don't even have to look far or hard for proof of this. Kathleen Kennedy's slogan, "The Force is Female," the hiring of Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, who's a known feminist documentary filmmaker who openly admitted that she enjoys making men uncomfortable, making Rey a Mary Sue, and the list goes on and on and on. I was genuinely hoping and starting to believe that Disney and Lucasfilm had maybe listened to the criticisms of the fans for why it will have been 7 years since a new theatrically released Star Wars film. But what do they decide to be their first big return to the silver screen? The Mandalorian and Grogu, followed by Star Wars Starfighter, and then the worst of these options, the Rey movie. What made them think any of these would be a better idea than just giving Rian Johnson his trilogy set in the Old Republic is way beyond me. Just for the record, out of the 3 projects they have announced, Starfighter sounds the most promising, but sitting next to the other 2 announcements doesn't exactly lead me to believe that they've been listening to their fan base, and it's not much of a high bar. Now, to wrap this up, no, I don't think that the Star Wars we all grew up on and loved is officially dead and gone. But I do think that it's going to be a long time before Star Wars even begins to earn the fans' trust back. They need to get rid of Kathleen Kennedy as president of Lucasfilm and just stop with trying to force a mostly male-dominant franchise to be more friendly to female audiences. Taking a predominantly male-dominated IP and turning it into something it's not has never worked out. And I'm not saying women can't enjoy Star Wars. I know plenty of women who love the George Lucas era Star Wars, and there are plenty of examples of shows that were able to do what Star Wars is desperately trying to do, but do it successfully. Just look at The Legend of Korra, the Clone Wars animated series, and more. What really has to stop is trying to force it to happen with shows like Ahsoka, The Acolyte, Rings of Power, and the MCU. Just focus on telling good stories, and if the protagonist happens to be female, no one will care. Abandon racial, sexual, and politics in general, and I could see my most beloved franchise returning to its original glory. But Kennedy has to go. If Lucasfilm and Disney were to take a page from Avatar, Dune, Avatar The Last Airbender, it could easily get back to the Star Wars we all know and love. But they have to stop forcing identity politics and just focus on making good stories with well-written characters, and preferably stories with an actual roadmap. But these are just some of my thoughts, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Whether you agree with something I said or you disagree, I'd love to hear from you guys. Until next time, my name is McKeon Mole, and I am signing out. I will see you guys in the next one.